Hello and welcome to this episode of Compensation Insider. So today I want to talk to you about how Compenben can help to fight the devastating impact of COVID on the gender pay gap. I recently read a great BBC article and I want to read to you the introduction because it's a great way to explain the situation. So it goes like that, and I'll put a link to the article. In early April, soon after the US economy began its pandemic-induced nosedive, a group of researchers from Northwestern University published a paper that noted some unusual patterns emerging. Regular recessions, that is routine economic contractions not spurred by once-in-a-century pandemic, typically hurts men's employment more than women's, the author wrote, as male-dominated industries like construction and manufacturing are often the first to slow down. The COVID-19 recession, on the other hand, seemed practically designed to torpedo women's employment. Stay-at-home orders and social distancing guidelines took a heavy toll on service and hospitality jobs, where women make up a large share of employees. They also shut down the support systems, schools and daycares that enable many women with young children to work. Grandparents, friends and neighbors who might otherwise have helped were off limits for fear of contagion. These factors had the potential to push women out of the workforce en masse, the authors wrote. And without a concerted effort from employers to retain female talent, the damage to women's careers could linger long after the virus is controlled. And it's true that there are a number of reasons why this crisis is hitting women harder. The first one being that the gender pay gap does exist, so women do tend to earn less than men. Women are more likely to be burdened with unpaid care and domestic work, and therefore may have to drop out of the labor force. So we know that, for example, before COVID, on a global basis, women were spending on average 4.1 hours per day on unpaid domestic work, while men would spend 1.7 hours. That's before COVID. We also know that women make up the majority of single-parent households, and they were faced with more decrease in their overall work hours in the face of the pandemic. So, for example, only 10% of low earners can work from home, and 69% of low earners are women in the UK. In the UK as well, we see that 75% of men had a top-up on their furlough payment given by the company. So the company topped up what the government was going to give, while only 65% of women did get that top-up. And that probably reflects, the industry that were affected, or maybe the fact that companies try to protect their more their senior, higher paid staff, which tends to be men. We see also that women are more likely to become unemployed. A report from McKinsey highlights that women represent 39% of the global employment, but 54% of the overall job losses during the pandemic. And the most impacted industries are the ones that had more women because they needed frontline customer-facing roles, such as in the food service, the retail, and entertainment. The challenge is that, in general, increased unemployment tends to encourage people to go back to traditional gender roles. So what happens is that women will tend to stay more at home, and the men who are unemployed will be later on favored more heavily in the hiring process at that point in time. So what can we do at the HR and Compenben level to support women and their employment? There are many things that can be done at the policy and government level. That's not what I'm going to cover. I just want to give you a few pointers of things that you can think of in your own organizations to support women and try to reduce not just the gender pay gap, but also the conditions to be more inclusive for women. So, for example, making sure that you implement paid leave, reduced or flexible working arrangements, so like flexible working hours, working from home permanent policies, flexible working days, part-time work, and so on will be supportive of women with smaller children. You can also think of your return to work policies and make sure that they're inclusive. For example, offer some options for the timing of meetings. So asking employees for their feedback when they would be more available to have meetings. Offer some predictability of the workload. Develop communication which is non-synchronous so that people can treat it, including women, treat it when they are available. There are lots of things that can be done in terms of benefits, in terms of childcare support, providing vouchers when things will get better, on-site creche, virtual tutors as well. Some companies I've read recently, I can't remember which company, there's a big company in the US that even hired some teachers. They hired, I think, 20 teachers to support their female employees with the schooling of their kids. Providing elder care support also, as well as support for domestic work would be helpful. So you could provide, vouchers for cleaning services, meal kits, this kind of stuff. Another thing is to encourage fathers to take all their leave. Have a paternity leave, which is the same duration as the maternity leave, and also encourage people to not work longer hours so that, especially men, so that they can share more the workload at home. Other things that you can think of and which we rarely think about is to kind of disconnect everything that has to do with pay for performance. So the increases, the promotion criteria and the incentives from KPIs that have a gender discrimination impact. And I'm thinking, for example, in entities that provide career movements based on billable hours. In a case where women are not able to provide as many hours necessarily because they have to take care of their kids at home, those forms of career development or promotions or even bonus or salary increase based on that kind of criteria is unfavorable to women. Another thing, and I kind of hinted at that already earlier, is to rehire women as a priority. So, for example, in your former employees, try to focus on the women, or try to see if you can get new female candidates, and paying them at the same pay level as before, especially if that's what you're going to do with men. I know that we don't always realize it, but we tend to offer for men the same salary upon rehire. Well, for women, it's like an opportunity to make a cost saving, and that further compounds the gender pay gap. And finally, I think the classic is to perform the gender pay gap analysis and establish a specific action plan if you need to for your own organization. So I think that all I want to say is that even though the context might be very difficult in terms of the economic situation and so on, we know that it has not impacted everybody the same way. And it's going to be very important to try and ensure that you make decisions that are not going to impact females further negatively, because they're already taking a large share of the impact of COVID today on the economy. Thank you, and see you next week.